Dokie. So I started the intro video claiming Joseph's sons, but as you may remember, we did talk about Joseph's sons a little bit. They were born to an Egyptian woman. So what I really meant to say is we're talking about Jacob's sons, right? Or Israel's sons. So that Jacob had the 12 tribes of Israel, right? So we're going to go ahead and get into them. And more importantly, one in particular, I'm sure you will know who it is once we begin to discuss. But he's a part of the Levite tribe. We're going to learn about this now. I have the kittens. They are ready to cuddle. But let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start off with a quote like always. Alright. And alright, let's just go ahead and get into it here. This is the night mail crossing the border, bringing the check and the postal order. Letters for the rich, letters for the poor. The shop at the corner, the girl next door. Pulling up the talk, a steady climb. The gradient's against her, but she's on time. Past cotton grass and moorland border, shoveling white steam over her shoulder. So this is from the night mail from Audine, who we've been reading the last few days, 1907 to 1973 with her life. But this is a train. It's talking about a steam engine, right? An old train, and she is personified as a female. I guess it's fitting because I'm reading this at night, and I was going to say, no, I did not necessarily plan to read it at night, but it just so happens that I've been a little bit bored in the evenings. I think we're going to go back to our morning schedule, but until now, we're just reading this opening for Exodus this evening here. So it's fitting, and yes, we are bringing message, right? We're bringing messages from the great book. So great little quote there. Let's go ahead and begin our journey through the land of Exodus. We did start organizing these. Oh no, my pumpkin is falling. Okay, that one is done. So let's continue. Starting out with chapter 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family. We have Reuben, Simon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, Asher. And we're missing one, right? Why is we missing one? Because there's 11, because Joseph was already in Egypt at the time. So with Joseph, that makes up the 12 tribes. And we're going to learn about actually the descendants of Levi. Something that I wanted to kind of get into before this is, remember when Jacob or Israel gave his blessing to all of the sons? What did he say about Levi? If we end up discussing any of these, we will learn, right? We'll learn, and I'll go back to see what they said. But this is what Jacob said about the Levi, right? And we'll learn about this tribe, the Levites. It said, Simon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly. For they have killed men in their anger, and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger, so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob, and disperse them in Israel. So he's giving a great foreshadowing. We'll learn about a Levite, and we'll see how this corresponds. Of course, it seems a little harsh, right? How could they be so bad that he doesn't even want to be a part of the council? He doesn't want to remain, a part of their family, essentially. He doesn't want to be known because of them. But little do we know, we have a member of the Levite tribe really taking reign over the faith in general, and taking a lot of control. So we'll learn about this now. Let's go on. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. The king of Egypt said to Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth, excuse me, let me just add this little quote in here. When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that it is a baby boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live on. Goodness gracious. So this is the first decree of death that we get upon the Hebrew children, the Hebrew boys, being born, right? The midwives, however, fear God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told him to do. They let the boys live. Okay, so this happened, and then something I didn't put in here is he actually ordered, I think, all boys under the age of 3 or 3 months, I honestly forget, to be killed like after, but he set like a town decree or a nation decree determining this. But let's continue to chapter 2. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could not hide him, or when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. So now we have a little bit of hint as to who this is, right? This is a story that we've heard so many times and probably have seen the rendition that was so good. I watched it growing up as a child, The Prince of Egypt. We're talking about Moses, of course, right? Very famous story. So he was a Levite, actually, and we'll learn to see what had happened. But yes, I guess the decree was every child under 3 months or, around that age had to go, which is a very sad thing. But she was like, no, no, no. Then the Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" So wonderful. We learned that his sister has been tracking the basket, and she actually approaches Pharaoh's daughter and asks, "Oh, I have a Hebrew woman who just had given birth. She'll be able to nurse the baby for you." And it's his mom, of course. So his mom actually ends up working in the palace, in the temple palace, and takes care of Moses, which was her actual son. And I'm sure his sister Miriam was in close quarters as well. So one day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. So, great, not so great. He's kind of fulfilling this prophecy that Jacob had, right? He was calling the Levites violent in nature. And the first thing that Moses does as he's coming into adulthood is he actually does kill somebody that causes him to run away and kind of become a vagabond, right, like many others, and live his own life somewhere else because he was in fear. So now came a priest in Midian, and he had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill their troughs to water their father's flock. But some shepherds came along and drove them away. But Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. Moses agreed to stay with the man who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. So eventually he rescues their flock, right? He starts to become fond of the family and actually comes to live with the family. Then the other gentleman in Midian gives him his daughter, right, Zipporah, to marry. And then Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." So Moses has grown up, he has his son, and during that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. So at this time, as we can remember kind of where we left off after a famine, right? So people started selling their livestock, they started selling their land in order to get food. So over time, I mean, years and years had passed. Even Joseph's generation kind of died out completely. Generations had passed, but over time, it just kind of became this cycle of servitude and slavery. And I think just naturally, I think a lot of the Hebrews were just a little bit one step under the Egyptians, just kind of how things were as far as like advancements and civilization wise. So this nature, as well as like the bad famine that everybody had, it just transformed into like a slave ship type of environment, especially for the Hebrews and the Egyptians. So it was a dark time, and they were definitely struggling hard. That was not what Joseph's plan was when he had his whole family move there and, you know, populate and grow and all of this stuff. It really ended up being kind of a bad situation. But of course, this was years and years later. It's impossible as a human to see like how this would play out. But of course, God always understands. He knows these things are going to take place, and He's one step ahead of the game, figuring out the solutions as we go. But yes, this is a great part, because this is where Moses has the instance with the burning bush. So as you remember maybe in the film or just from hearing the narrative, Moses sees the burning bush, but it's not burning completely. It's just like glowing and just engulfed. And the Lord is talking to him, and He's now sending him the message saying He wants him to take action. So the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. So, wonderful. Moses is explaining what he wants to do with the people and with Moses, and what his plan is. He's moving everybody back out to where their ancestors were or are, and their generations. So he's kind of just trying to bring everybody back together, and looking out after the people that he, in a way, brought there through Joseph. So yes, let's go ahead and see how this turns out. There's going to be a lot of drama to come, I'm sure you're all aware, but we'll go ahead and cover it here. That's really all I have to say for right now, guys. We made it through chapter 3. And there's a little bit less in Exodus as far as chapters go. I think we had 50 in Genesis, around 50 few, and then Exodus is around 40 chapters. So we'll go ahead and take a look at those and have some fun reading about it. Alright, good evening, thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Yes. Surprise, baby.